Good
Such a
evening.
jam.
Oh, that music on
It's a
that one.
head bopper. Yeah. Gets me stoked.
This is an exciting episode. I was kept hyping it up all week at the gym, or at least the last few days, and then all of a sudden I realized I forgot to post it on Instagram today. I was like, shoot.
Oh, shoot.
Um, but I was really excited to talk about this. People were throwing off a little bit. I'm like, there's a little foreshadowing, but we're like 4 and some change months out from the open. And people were like, "Yep." It's like, no, like you guys have to realize, like, if you're really wanting to push it this year, now is the time to
Now's the
start
time.
focusing because you're already really halfway through our off season.
Mhm.
But I'll talk more about that when we get into this thing. But welcome everyone to Grit Daily Dose with E Squared. Myself, EJ, and
Emma.
we try to be a one-stop shop for science and experience-based knowledge on supplements, nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle to bring you guys an honest education, hopefully to help you along the way towards whatever goals you may have. So today's topic is seasonal training and nutrition. What I mean by that, it's we have different phases of seasons when it comes to athletes, and we consider everyone in our gym an athlete because everyone is there to progress in some fashion or other, and then incorporating your nutrition into it. How, if there is an adjustment that should be made dependent on your goals. So, kind of some backgrounds. Like we use ourselves, Emma and I, we use CrossFit as our main form of fitness. And it's quite arguably the best form of fitness that I have ever experienced.
Yes.
And that I've seen for a lot of other people. And while we train a multitude of facets of fitness every single day in the gym, what's called the CrossFit Open is the big test for so many people in the CrossFit community, and it usually begins about mid-February. That's why I told my gym, like, hey, heads up, we're like just
getting
over 4 months
close.
out. Yeah. And I hear a lot of talk about how to prepare for the CrossFit Open, especially when we get closer to it in the whole season in its entirety. And typically, a training year is divided into 4 main seasons. You have your off season, your preseason. Well, let me say your off season, sometimes called base training. This is where you use to work on your weaknesses, improve areas, get stronger, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You have your preseason. That's when you really dial it in and you start getting prepped for in season, and that's your actual competitive season. This is where you fuel and you work on recovery. That's your main focus here. Then you have the postseason, which is a lot of rest. For those higher elite athletes, they really focus on like, I need to get back to center because I've been high octane for several months.
Yeah. And a lot of times, too, that's mental rest a lot, right? Like, not only physical rest and getting your diet back to regular, but like just not. I mean, there's games athletes that like don't go in the gym. They don't even look at a gym for like a month after the games. So,
Yeah.
and that's just so they can go on trips, and they like that's the times when they go to Europe.
I was watching, what was it? I watched Justin Medeiros. I watched this series, and he's like just now getting back into training.
Yeah. So I know like some people will dive right back in, but I think the mental break is very important because you're focused for so long. So
so today we're going to look into each of these main phases and break them down to the type of training that usually occurs and how to optimize it for yourself going into this next CrossFit season, as well as your nutrition and kind of what to expect sometimes if you really want to strive for next level goals within CrossFit or your training in general. So even in some more background, what is the CrossFit Open? For maybe some people who are watching who don't necessarily know, or maybe educating the people who are in CrossFit but maybe have never done the Open. So throughout the year, we hit a lot of benchmark workouts in your box or gym, like a 1, 3, 5 rep max back squat, heavy snatch. We also have hero workouts, or we have like, workouts like our girls, our
ladies.
Fran, Cindy, Diane. But the CrossFit Open is to start the CrossFit Games season. And this is the opportunity to see how we perform compared to everyone else from around the world who competes in the Open.
It's like 300,000 or 400,000 people.
It's a ton.
It's fun to see your ranking. It really is.
Yeah. So the Open itself consists of 5 workouts spread throughout 5 weeks. We release them on a Thursday, and you have until Monday, like 5 p.m., to put your scores in. Now, for the much more competitive athletes, the Open is really just the first qualifying step or stage for them to get to the games. So any athlete that wants to eventually get to the games, they got to go through the Open, and they got to hit the quarterfinals and the semifinals, and then only if then they get a spot for the games to be the fittest on earth. So even if you are a complete beginner, that being said, like let's say you just finished foundations, you can participate in the Open, and we encourage people to, because every workout features scaling options. And one of the most useful things about participating in the Open is that year after year, you end up having this complete record of your past performance. It can also provide a really nice, like, little reality check about specific skills and your overall level that you maybe want to work on. You also find that reviewing all the past data is super beneficial when it comes to setting new goals in the post and off season when you get into more of your training. So why, do you have anything to add to that?
I just like that last little bit that you had about like goals, because I think it can be really easy to be like, hey, I'm going to CrossFit and I go 3, 4, 5 days a week, and that's what I do, and then I go home, and it's like, sure, that is amazing, but setting goals to try to reach a goal is just kind of what keeps the fire burning. Just talking to a member today, she's doing amazing, but she's like, I am not really progressing with my pull-ups, and I was like, okay, let's work together to, like, let's set a goal, let's try to get it by the beginning, the new year or whatever. But that could also be, where maybe your goal is to compete in the Open for the first time, and then that's kind of your baseline, and then every year you want to improve. Personally, for me, it's been up and down because of pregnancies and whatever. I still participate in the Open even with my last 2 pregnancies, but just did them kind of scaled. But the goal, like, don't get so stuck in just going to CrossFit and like just counting your max. Like, there are little things, like your CrossFit Open can be, I want to compete in the Open in the next 3 months, and it is a competition. You can treat it that way, or you can just treat it as like, this is my own personal fitness test for the year, and I just want to see how I'm doing. But the fact that you can log it all in one place is awesome, because it's all there in one spot for you to keep track of.
The only other thing I want, thank you for chiming in there. The only thing I wanted to add into it is that one of the biggest factors within CrossFit, or at least one of the things we really, really emphasize, is community. And so the Open is really, really big on inclusivity and bringing more people together. And what I really like, not having preference, but about our gym, is that we do a Friday night lights. So like the workout is released on Thursday, then Friday we schedule heats, we do a potluck, we do a big old party, and we have heats. Like, it's almost like a competition in-house, and everyone's like going, watching, drinking, having fun. It's a really good time that we have, and it's about building up our community. So
you do that every week of the Open, or do you do like a potluck on the Dang, it's a party every week.
Yeah,
that's
every
like
week,
fun.
every Friday.
Was there was one year, like there was a year like a year or 2 ago that was only 3 weeks, right?
I think so. Yeah.
I don't remember. Yeah. That was lame. Oh, I like it when it's longer.
Yeah.
More tests are better, especially just the variety of tests is like ideal, because you only do it once a year most likely if you're just a, just a regular old CrossFitter. But you might have you might have a quarterfinal shot, but even then, a lot of people will make it to quarterfinals and then they see the first workout and they're like, no thanks, that's a little too hard. So,
So why is planning your CrossFit season important? So like we were talking about setting goals, if we're looking to grow as an athlete in any capacity, we need to have the proper plan in place to be able to make consistent progress towards your goals and avoid as many roadblocks, especially injury, from getting in the way of that. That's why, like, when we teach, like for our gym, we go through cycles, like lifting cycles, where we really focus on injury prevention and things to do to not have that. So I guess we can get right into it. The off season. What is the off season? So the off season is the period of time after the conclusion of the season, which the off season is after the postseason. But this is where athletes decrease sport specific skill work and start to focus on more functional movement and strength development. This change will allow for greater gains in skill work as the foundation of their athletic pyramid grows. And what I mean by that is that to get better in a snatch, you need to get better at your overhead squat, your snatch balance, possibly snatch grip, strict press, all these different facets of basic movements, even snatch grip deadlift. That's another one.
Yeah.
Like simple, basic functional movements that will be applied when in a more complex movement. Now, like with the exception of maybe 0.1% of the participants who actually go to the games, the CrossFit season doesn't usually extend past the open. So that ends up giving, or like also quarterfinals. So it usually gives people about 8 to 11 months, if not more, to 11 months to train and test themselves for the next CrossFit Open. And so there's a variety of phases and cycles that can happen, but the ones that I really wanted to focus on were these three main ones that come prior to the preseason. And the first one we have is hypertrophy / endurance phase. And what this is all about is preparing a phase that's designed to improve muscular recruitment and your anaerobic endurance and increase the size of muscular tissue. Now, what does this involve? Usually it's a lot of generalized conditioning exercises or activities and more accessory movements. So like the bodybuilding style, where you might have some back squats, but they're for higher repetition, more volume. Your dumbbell curl, tricep extensions, like very, very foundational, simple accessory movements that help with more conditioning versus strength and power. Anything to add to that one?
I mean, this is probably where you're going to find a lot of aerobic capacity, spending a lot of time on one or a couple machines, and that's just where you live for a few months.
I didn't want to talk about this one very much because this is the one I hate. I hate.
It works though, man. Like there's been times where I just wanted to focus on getting strong, but I didn't want to completely lose my endurance. So I did, 2, maybe 3 days of, like a aerobic capacity kind of structure, the Hinshaw kind of method. And man, when I went back to Metcons, it's like I didn't even skip a beat. It was like, I just had the skill that I had to pick up for a few weeks, but then after that I was fine. So it works like a charm, but it sucks.
Yeah. And what I think a lot of people don't realize is that improving your conditioning capabilities or cardiovascular capabilities will transfer into this next phase when you're doing big movements like a heavy back squat or a front squat. And so after the endurance or hypertrophy phase, you get into what's called the strength phase. And this is just like it says, it's improving that mind muscle or neuromuscular connection recruitment that facilitates essentials to the primary sport movements. Again, this gets into like a deadlift, a back squat, bench press, even. These are
Heavy
functional movements.
Olympic lifts.
Yep. That help facilitate into like doing things like the Olympic lifts.
Mhm.
So that's goes into anything to touch on the strength phase. I'll let you chime in.
No.
Okay. So the strength phase is all about building that foundational strength when it gets into power. There's a difference between strength and power. Strength is raw muscle movement, being able to move heavy crap. Now, power, how fast can you move that heavy crap? That's what that's all about. So now we're really getting the explosiveness, and we have
So
this. Go ahead.
we know you can snatch deadlift a lot of weight. So now how fast can you
Snatch
pull
it.
that bar off the ground and snatch it? That's my
Yeah.
biggest, that's like my Achilles heel. Like I can snatch deadlift all day and then you make me move it fast. I'm like,
Nah.
eh.
So the power phase is designed to teach athletes how to apply the strength that was developed quickly to generate the maximal power output. So the ability to generate power is closely related to athletic prowess. And this doesn't have to mean necessarily, I mean, we're talking a lot about CrossFit, but there's also going to be applied into, let's say, football.
Mhm.
These guys utilize strength phases more. I guess some of their power too. Strength phases, at least also with rugby as well. When we
Yeah.
had strength phases, in our strength phases, we were doing Olympic lifts.
Mhm.
That way, when
Especially
we got to the
cleans.
power, yes,
Cleans
that's a
everything.
lot.
Yeah.
Being able to have that big leg drive and catch something here right on your shoulders, which ends up, if you're playing football, it's how can you have that big of a leg drive with some pressure onto your shoulders, and how much power can you output when you go down to tackle a guy?
Mhm.
You're gonna hit him with 100 pounds of force, or you're gonna hit him with 400.
Yeah. It's crazy. I've seen some wild cleans in a like football preseason. I'm like, you wouldn't think. I mean, they don't always look pretty, but
Yeah,
pretty powerful.
yeah. During these three phases, it's also very, very important to test your limits. That's why there's a lot of really cool, especially local competitions that happen where you can test your abilities. And you kind of go through this cycle where you work inside your current limits and your abilities. You get, let's say you go to a competition, a local competition, or you do an online qualifier, even. Then you test your abilities and kind of push your limits, see if you can progress. And then from there, then you work again. Maybe you have more advanced abilities now, but you work inside those. And it's just this big old leapfrog cycle that we try to work on. Anything else that you want to touch on within these three phases?
No, you got it.
So that's the big one when it comes to like main off season, training wise. And we talk nutrition in the main center of the off season. We'll get into preseason as well, but nutrition wise within off season is you most likely, depending on your goals, but more often than not, you gotta possibly be okay with putting on a little body fat, because the more mass you can get efficient at moving, the more you'll be able to cut down for preseason and in season. That you'll move quicker and be able to move more weight that much more efficiently. So when we talk about fueling off season wise, you want to be able to compensate your fueling capabilities so that you have a good lifestyle and training during the off season. And again, recognizing that possible changes in body fat and weight might occur, and just being aware of those appropriate changes. Yeah, it's really about creating balance. We got something to say with that?
I usually just remind people that you can't be pushing your body with, you know, in terms of nutrition to like be
Yeah.
losing all this weight and being lean all year round.
Yep.
Like it most of the year you're going to be spending either at maintenance or a slight surplus.
Yep.
And that is strictly, if you are a performance based athlete, that is strictly just to support your gains as an athlete. And that's usually when, if you have athletes who struggle with that, you got to talk to them about like hey, if you want to improve in this performance area, you gotta like let the emotions go a little bit, because a lot of how you're fueling your body is strictly to enhance your performance. You know, it's nothing personal if you gain a percentage or two of body fat. And usually it always works out in the end, right? Like people feel better, they're able to really attack, they can adjust their body composition later on. But I think a lot of people, it is a hard shift when you go from the season prior where you're really just trying to nail down leaning out or, you know, whatever it is. And then you have to suddenly have this big mind switch and just be okay with the complete opposite. Um, but usually I think most performance athletes have a pretty good idea of the fact that like your nutrition has to be top notch to be able to support all of that output.
Right. Yeah. Um, and it's very different between athletes. Either you'll likely see, it depends. Some athletes will see a slight decrease in activity level,
Mm-hmm.
at least getting right into the off season. So it's either decreasing your calories or maintaining them and
Mm-hmm.
being okay with body fat coming on a little bit, because that's just extra stored energy you have when you get back into your solid regular training regimen.
Mm-hmm.
But nutrition in the off season, like you were saying, you're 100% right. Because I noticed that last year going into the open season, I started dialing everything in and I cut some weight and got pretty lean, and it was awesome. Like I was moving well, felt great, and then continued that into the quarterfinals.
Mm-hmm.
Right after the quarterfinals, I was trying to train and my knees started acting up, my joints started acting up, my energy level started to plummet.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was just not sustainable. You can't be riding or cruising at high speed all year long. And I was like, I got this. This is fine. And it was a rude awakening. Like, all right, you
Yeah.
need to put some body fat back on. It's better for your joints. Okay, you're not going to be as aesthetic as you want to be, but you got to find that balance of
Mm-hmm.
how you want to look, but how you want to perform. What's more
Mm-hmm.
important to you?
Yeah, it's so easy, like in the midst of performing well, to be like, oh, I'll just stay like this. And
Yeah.
your body is forever changing. That's, you know, your needs change, your stress levels change. You can't expect that what works today is going to work in 6 months.
Right.
Most likely it's not. So, always changing.
So, looking at you're in your off season, eat for performance, eat for lifestyle, enjoy yourself, but keep your goals in mind. Like, don't eat like a garbage can. Um, be mindful. And if you need some guidance, find a coach to help you maybe start structuring off-season diet so that they prepare you for the preseason and then in season.
I would say if you are someone who has a goal of competing in the Open this year, nutrition needs to be talked about and dialed in within the next few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, hit
So,
that nail on the head.
EJ, me, either one, we're happy to help.
Absolutely. All right. So then we get into the preseason. What's the preseason? Well, the off season is coming to a close. That's pretty what it means. And the preparation for in season begins. This is where you start ramping up volume and you hone in on the skills that take priority. You're no longer doing a lot of back squats, front squats. You're focused on Olympic lifts, variations of them. Working at the high hang, the hang, complexes of them. You're maybe hitting several days a week, a couple metcons a
Mm-hmm.
day. You're gonna ramp up maybe some extra lactic acid threshold, like cardio stuff. Um, it's I remembered last year, and it beat the crap out of me.
Mm-hmm.
Like it taught you a hard lesson. Like get ready, because
Yeah.
but you hit a threshold. You hit a really good threshold where it's like this sucks at first, and then your body adapts, and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, this feels good. And then you're in class doing metcons. I'm like, this is cruising
Mm-hmm. I
because
think
you
too,
go ahead.
you have to be prepared for a lot of movements that you'll see in the Open. So like box jump
Right.
overs, dumbbell
Double
snatches,
unders.
double unders, wall walks, pull
Yep.
ups, chest to bars, muscle ups. Um, what else am I missing? Rowing.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, like maybe lighter, uh, like barbell cycling is going to be the big one. Um, and then be prepared for those movements, but also maybe longer metcons that kind of fry you a little bit. You
Yeah.
most likely, unless it's some weird twisted version of like Fran, you most likely are not going to walk into your gym the week or two before the open and see a 4-minute AMRAP. You
Mhm.
most likely will see 5 sets of a 4-minute AMRAP, right? But with a minute rest, but it will probably be longer and it will be meant to make you spin your wheels a little bit.
It's like what we did today. We had 3 5-minute AMRAPs. In each one of those AMRAPs, it was 8 overhead squats, 8 burpees over the bar, and 8 pull ups.
Uh,
You got a 3-minute rest in between each AMRAP.
oh,
But this taught a lot of people a hard lesson on how to pace because a lot of
yeah.
people went harder than they should have. And so they do like 4 rounds and then they hit just over 3. And then they're like 2.5.
I'm so
And
opposite from that. I like sandbag it so hard. And then the last round, I'm like, oh, I could do it. And I do like double the first round. I'm like, oops. Today we had the power snatch and echo bike workout today. I don't know if you had that last week.
oh,
That one
yeah.
stole my soul a little bit. So, but movements like, I mean, I feel like Mayhem specifically, and we both do Mayhem, like they do a pretty good job of keeping all the movements that you would do in the open pretty fresh all year
It
round.
was kind of freaky last year how like accurate because I think we did some workout like a couple weeks before the open and the open
And it was
happened and
super
it was like
similar.
yes, and it's
Yeah.
like I don't know what they're doing, but they're doing something right over at
Something's
Mayhem.
right. I think the open this year would started on my due date. So I was
Oh,
nowhere near a gym. I was
ah,
at home preparing for a baby. I was bummed though. I was like, can I go judge? Like big and round. But yeah. So preseason, get ready to suffer a little bit.
yeah, and you're starting to prepare. Like when you talk about like into nutrition of the preseason, you start cutting back the calories a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit. You want to make sure you're maintaining your muscle mass, so getting enough protein. You want to make sure you're getting enough carbohydrates because you got to be able to maintain your performance as well. If anything, maybe cut back on the fats a little bit, and maybe a little on the carbohydrates, but you want to make
And
sure you're keeping plenty of carbs. But
the one thing that a lot of people do forget about, if I'm not mistaken, this will be the time that you also are going to be a little bit more picky about when you eat.
oh, yep,
So timing will be, if you're someone who's just like, I don't care, I'll eat whenever as long as I hit my macros, you might need to think about when you're eating certain macronutrients, how much you're eating, obviously, at certain points. Um, because what you want to do is fuel your body the best you can and specifically around the activity that you're doing.
and I'd almost suggest like starting that at towards the tail end of your off season,
Yeah, because you don't want to
so
be
that
messing around with that, like messing up and goofing off
right,
throughout your preseason. It might take a few weeks to dial in.
and that's something you can research, like what makes it best for you. But I usually suggest that people eat uh, an hour and a half to 2.5 hours before your training, but not a
Mhm.
big meal.
Yeah,
It should be carbohydrate and protein focused with a little bit of fat, because fat is
takes so much of your
it
energy,
it
basically.
does. Protein is like the hardest for your body to digest. It takes a
Hmm.
lot of energy, but the actual metabolization of fats isn't as efficient as everything else.
Hmm.
So you want to make sure you're getting those amino acids and having those complex carbs to be able to break down into the sugar that you're going to need for those workouts.
Mhm.
That was good. I'm glad you brought that up. Then once we're done with the preseason, we get right into the in season. So what's the in season? This is the open. It's the beginning of the open. It's the beginning of the game season. What do we do here? Well, the key here is to maintain the obligations to the sport that you train for with minimal losses in performance capabilities. So you're on maintenance. You're working, if you're doing lifts, you're working like 80, 85%. You're not going for maxes here. You're trying to keep consistent, maybe improve a little bit with those heavier weights, but we're not doing 1 rep maxes. That stuff's done in the off season. And you're trying to prepare yourself so that each week you're good with your nutrition, you're good with your training, so that you're optimized to take on that workout every Friday or Saturday, whatever it may be, that you decide to do it. You want to make sure that in addition, it is of the utmost importance that you maintain your strength, endurance, and mobility that you hopefully gain through the off season.
Hopefully.
That's the one thing I didn't touch on. Yeah, mobility. Stress that
Just
in the off season.
Those little things that you tend to be like, oh, I'll deal with that when it's not the open. Like that's the thing you got to focus on the off season. So if there's something that you hit in season that you're like, ooh, should have worked on that. That's going to be the thing that you focus on the following off season.
Yeah. Have a regiment like with the mobility during the off season of what you need to do. That way, when you get into the in season, that you do some mobility at the beginning. Let's say you come into week 1, do some solid mobility Monday and Tuesday, start dialing it back a little bit on Wednesday and Thursday so that your muscles actually are mobile, but they're a little tight because you don't want to go into constant movement being too loose. Being too loose can actually hurt you. So having a little bit of tightness is good, but you want to be flexible.
Yeah.
Maybe actually get a full depth without like overarching your back and cutting in half.
Snaps in half.
Yeah.
Well, and I would say too, the approach is going to be different for quarterfinals, right? Quarterfinals, you got to finish 3-4 workouts in one weekend. So that's where you train in, maybe you're doing something on Sunday, the prior or the Sunday before, maybe training Monday, Tuesday pretty regularly, and then you're backing off by Wednesday in preparation for Thursday afternoon, Friday, kind of doing 1 or 2 metcons. So the approach is going to be different depending on the stage that you get to. But the biggest thing for in season is just making sure you're fueling your body to be able to tackle the things that it needs to tackle, whether it's the open workouts or whatever you're in season for. Preparing in terms of recovery is going to be a big one too.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because that's like the number one thing in season, because you're going to go hard on those workouts, and it's going to be like baseball. They're going to go hard during the game, then you need to recover. So that's food, mobility, active recovery, move around, and then you're back Monday training, Tuesday training, maybe start dialing it back, and then you're hitting it hard for the next game or the next workout. Now, again, the open isn't that intense for many people. It's really not that intense. It's a workout. People work out on Fridays. You can hit it like a regular workout, but if you really want to test yourself, treat it like an actual season. Dial it back and hit it hard for that workout. Talk to more experienced athletes on how to strategize. Talk to your coaches because they're there to help you. But again, this is all about if you want to like actually build up your capacity of being an athlete. And I hope that that is the case for a lot of people.
I think it completely depends on how you want to approach it.
Yeah.
But also keeping in mind that sometimes the way we want to approach it isn't the best thing for us to reach our goals. So a lot of people get really nervous when it comes to competition, and that's why they don't want to do the open. And I'm always describing like you aren't, yeah, you're competing against 300,000 people, right?
Right.
But in the big scheme of things, you're just competing against the previous year you.
Yep.
So, sure, there might be few people in the gym that you're competing against um, for fun. But if competition in general kind of stresses you out, don't just show up on Friday, do the workouts, log your score. You don't even have to look at your placement. The next year, you are like, I would expect whoever my athlete is to look at the previous placement of the year before. And then obviously we take note of like year one, what did you struggle with? Couldn't do wall walks? Okay, we're working on wall walks this year. Couldn't do, miss that max clean that you really wanted. Okay, we're working on, front squats, whatever the portion of the clean that they struggle with the most, deadlifts, whatever, right? But a lot of times like people can be kind of held back by what they want to do and what they probably should do. In terms of, like I mentioned earlier, it's so easy just to show up and do the thing and go home. And that's not always the most invigorating. It's good to challenge yourself. So maybe, if it's your first year, you're nervous, sign up, register, have your name on the leaderboard, log your scores. Don't pay attention to where you fall. We'll pay attention to what you struggle with. We'll focus on that this next year. And then next year, we'll kind of compare you, because you will be amazed at how well you do next year if you have very specific goals. Yep. And a good idea of like where you want to go, as opposed to just being like, oh, I'm just going to show up and do the workouts and go home, yeah.
And then we have, after our 5 weeks of the open are done, so like I said, for a lot of people, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think right now they're still doing the top 10% for each division.
I hope they keep that, because then I have some hope.
Which is a big chunk, because I know in my division last year was like 130,000 RX men that did it.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said too, a lot of people will make it to quarterfinals, but then they're like, we don't want to spend the $50 to register, or those workouts are hard.
Oh yeah, I was terrified of, what was it? Is 1, then 2, then 3, 4 of, you started with 5 box over burpees or burpee box jumps with a 30-inch box, and then you had to go over and clean and split jerk, or clean and jerk 275, and you did it once, then you did your burpees, then you had to go back, you had to do it twice, then you went back to the box, then you did it 3 times.
But there was a workout similar the year before, wasn't there?
I don't know.
I thought there was.
Pretty sure it was just from this last year. I was terrified of that one.
Yeah, there's definitely that's the workout you just got to tackle if you're nervous about it. There's one 2022 where it was start with GHGs or pistols. It's like,
was it GHD
3 rounds of whatever, like 50, 60 pistols, and then like 50 GHGs, and then like 15 ring muscle ups. And I'd never done workout with like actual multiple ring muscle ups. So I just did one at a time, and I just chipped away at it. And I actually got way farther than I thought I would. But it's good to have those workouts that push you. I think if any of your members make it to the quarterfinals this year or anything like that, even if they can only do 1 or 2 of the workouts, it's fun.
Yep.
It's fun to see what you can do.
That next level of testing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Then after we're done with the season, whether it's after the open or you're after quarterfinals, heck, even after, if you get the semifinals, this could be games athletes too. Your postseason is the first and foremost about rest and recover. Mm-hmm. If you've gotten to the quarterfinals, take the next few days and just chill. Like, just go walk, maybe come to the gym and get on the bike erg and just move. Come hang out with your community and just move.
Talk strategy with your coach.
Yep, on how to approach the next season. Exactly. Which is the next note I have, which this is also the opportunity to take all the notes they're all the things that you learned about what, because the scariest thing is not knowing what we don't know.
Mhm.
And so take notes throughout the in season. Like you're saying, like, if we don't know how to do wall walks, okay, this off season we're going to work on them. Take the notes that you've gained from all the workouts or from every game, you could say, if you're in a different sport, of the things you need to improve on for the next season. And this is where you can start strategizing on building a game plan. Obviously we're going to have certain cycles within our gym of the program that we're running. But even as an athlete, like with our classes, you've got a half hour after every class that you can work on something.
Yeah.
And you have the coaches like myself or Aaron or Chauncey and Randy. You have someone there to help you along the way. So this is opportunity then to take the notes that you gained from the season and start building game plan so that when the real work comes back in the off season, that you start working on those weaknesses. What do you got for that?
I don't know. I just keep thinking. I just keep going back to, like, if you are going to be doing the Open this year and you're serious about it, you better get your nutrition in check in the next week or two. Go to EJ.
Which I will start putting some stuff together. I wanted to maybe look at doing like another challenge or something, getting in pre-open, maybe help build some structure and good habits with people. I know not everyone's going to like that during the holidays, but hey, if you're looking to improve yourself, and you don't have to, let me just put it out there, you don't have to cut everything out if you're in a nutrition challenge. That's not what we're about. The nutrition challenge is about building solid habits.
My argument for fixing your nutrition a little bit over the holidays is everyone, any sane nutrition coach would understand you enjoying the holidays and having a piece of pie on Thanksgiving and a piece of chocolate on Christmas or whatever, or more than that. I don't know. It's but that's my thing is, like, I want to clean up my nutrition during the holidays because I know I have some allotted days where, like, even the most clean eater will probably have some sort of sugary treat on those days. So for me, it's like gives me a little bit more of like leeway of, I don't feeling bad about having a piece of pie on Thanksgiving is silly. It's like a little bit more justification. So because for someone like me, I'm like 100% all the time. I always want. So like that helps me, gives me a little bit of space to run with. So our gym is doing it's called the Lazy Macros Transformation Challenge. So we're doing the 800 grams of fruit and veggies and meeting our protein goal every day. Oh, you and your vegetables. I could eat 800 grams of watermelon in a day.
I love watermelon. Half of it's water, so of course you could.
I know, I love watermelon. But I just like that take on it because it's really, if you're meeting your macros or your protein and then you're replacing, probably, I'm sure people are going to be choosing to eat watermelon instead of that bowl of cereal before bed, right? Just to try to match those 800 grams. So, I like that take on it. It's a little less stress. And you win money if you win. So bet your booty I'm going to be doing it.
We haven't done that before. We haven't done because ours are about like you're competing against yourself.
Yeah.
Now we do have weekly prizes for being consistent on the challenges.
That's worth it.
We have little mini challenges every week.
I like a little bit of the.
Yeah. I think last year we had like some intra or pre from Swolverine that we put in there. Then we had some gift cards to local places, and it's cool. There's a little give back to people that are participating and who are really putting the work in. There's always also a buy-in into the challenge as well. So
it's good to be recognized though. Like, oh yeah, they're noticing that I've put in a lot of work to this or that I'm working hard on this. So I guess all of this is to say, like, I feel like we touched on a lot about it. It's like, if you want to train like what we're talking about, having goals and being very clear about what direction you want to go in is the most important part, because you can't really train seasonally if you have no idea what goals you need to reach or what direction you want to go in.
I can't say that any better. That was
Yeah.
great. Yeah. All right. I got nothing else. You good?
That was awesome. Yeah.
This
we're
is
good.
an awesome episode. I was really excited to talk about this. If you guys ever have any questions or maybe want to look at developing goals, whether it's training or nutrition, reach out. We have our Instagram. I'm terrible at this shit.
Just there.
Instagram handle. I always do this side. I'm like, it's over here on my computer.
I always point the wrong direction. I'm like,
We have our Instagram handles. You can always email me at nutrition@346gritcrossfit.com. If you see me in the gym, hey, come bug me. It's not really bugging me. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have, or set up a sit down. Like we can go grab coffee. We can go discuss training options or how to build the proper game plan for you, whether it's nutrition or training. But if you guys like what you see, like, subscribe, comment, all the things. Appreciate y'all taking the time out of your evening to join us. Anything else, Emma?
nope.
All right.
Good.
Let's see you guys
Bye.
on the next episode. Take care.